You know that feeling when you tell a scary story to your friends, laugh nervously, and then pretend everything's fine? Yeah. The problem is when the story decides to keep going after you get home. Today, you're going to hear a story from Charleston, a city haunted by ghosts from centuries past, a place that might not let anyone leave untouched. Before we start, you know the drill. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. And if you've ever had a strange, creepy, or completely unexplainable experience, send it to us. Maybe your story will appear in the next video. From this moment on, you might never walk alone again after this night tour. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29 years old and live in Charleston, South Carolina, a city where the streets feel alive with memories, and every corner has a story of death, war, or ghosts to tell. I work as a tour guide on the city's famous nighttime ghost tours, leading groups through cemeteries, old houses, and narrow alleys, telling tales of hauntings. I've always loved it. I enjoy seeing that mix of fear and fascination on people's faces, especially when I shine my flashlight on a tombstone at just the right moment, or drop my voice to a whisper right before the scare. But that night, something changed. My group was small, 7 people, an elderly couple, 2 brave teenage girls, and 3 friends from New York who laughed at everything. We started as usual on East Bay Street, where the historic Victorian homes still show scars from the Great Fire of 1861. As I told the story of the blaze that destroyed nearly a third of the city, a chill crawled up the back of my neck. I ignored it. We kept walking, but at every stop, I had the strange feeling that there was someone extra in the group. Hard to explain. I didn't see anyone, but it felt like a presence, always standing just beyond the curb, watching me. We reached the traditional stop at the cemetery, the highlight of the tour. Old tombstones, moss-covered trees, and the famous legend of Sue Howard's ghost photo. The teenage girls clung to each other, laughing nervously. "Here," I said, pointing my flashlight at a particular gravestone. This is where the photo was taken, in 1987. A kneeling woman, mourning, it seemed, appeared in the picture. But when the photographer looked around, there was no one in the cemetery. Everyone leaned closer to look. That's when I felt something cold brush against my hand. I turned, quickly, thinking it was one of the girls, but they were across the path, giggling and recording TikToks. I pretended nothing had happened and went on with the story, but I noticed one of the girls suddenly shiver and reach for her hair. "Who pulled my hair?" she asked, looking at her friends. They swore they hadn't touched her. The group laughed, thinking it was just nerves or suggestion. I laughed too, but inside my stomach was twisting. When the tour ended, I said goodbye and started walking home. Normally, that walk relaxes me. 15 quiet minutes through narrow, peaceful streets. But that night, the feeling of being followed was unbearable. With every step, I heard another step behind me. Not an echo. Not the sound of someone in the distance. Someone was matching my pace. I stopped. The sound stopped. I turned slowly. The street was empty, only the faint flap of a flag in the wind. Nothing else. My heartbeat quickened. I walked faster. The steps behind me grew faster, too. When I reached my street, the sound suddenly stopped, as if they had never existed. I rushed inside, locked the door, and tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was paranoia, maybe a tourist heading the same way. But at 3 a.m, I woke up to a noise. 3 slow knocks on the front door. I cracked it open, a mistake I regret to this day. Cold air rushed in like winter, even though it was late September. No one was outside. But when I closed the door and turned around, there were 3 muddy footprints on the doormat, as if someone had just stood there. I sat on the couch and stayed awake until sunrise. When daylight finally came through the window, the prints were gone. Not faded, not dry, gone. And that's when I realized that something, or someone, had followed me home that night. When I got to the tour office the next day, I told my coworker Rachel. She laughed, said I was just making up a good story to impress tourists. I spent the rest of the day uneasy. When night came and it was time for another tour, I could barely force myself to leave the house. But I did. I led the group almost on autopilot, skipping details, not caring about timing or tone. I came home earlier than usual. The house was dark, too quiet. I took off my shoes and noticed the floor was freezing cold for an autumn night. I turned on the lights one by one, checking every room. Everything looked normal. Then I heard it. A whisper, faint, coming from upstairs. I froze. My house is small. I live alone. There was no possible way anyone could be up there. The sound came again, a scrape of syllables, like someone murmuring softly. I took a deep breath, grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and started climbing the stairs slowly, each step creaking beneath me. "Who's there?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. Silence. I reached the top and looked down the hallway. Total darkness. But I felt it. A sudden shift in the air, like someone had just rushed past. I checked the guest room first. Nothing, then the bathroom. Empty. Finally, my bedroom. Everything was exactly as I'd left it that morning. As I turned to leave, I heard the whisper again, right behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly fell, but there was nothing. Only the curtains swaying, even though the window was shut. I ran downstairs, sat on the couch with every light on, the TV blaring, phone in hand, as if the noise could keep me safe. I stayed awake all night again. The next morning, I called my mom in Savannah and told her everything. She just said I was exhausted and needed rest. "Emily, you talk about ghosts all the time. You're surrounded by these stories. Eventually, you were bound to start dreaming while awake." It wasn't a dream. I knew that. On the third night, something changed. No knocks, no whispers, nothing. And that nothing was worse. I lay awake for hours waiting for something to happen. When I finally drifted off, I had a dream so vivid it jolted me awake. I was standing in the middle of a cemetery. A woman in a black dress was kneeling, crying. I couldn't see her face. When I tried to approach, she stood slowly and pointed at me. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. That's when I woke up. In the darkness, I saw something at the edge of the bed. A silhouette. Tall. Still. Facing away from me. I couldn't move. My body was frozen. The figure turned its head slightly, as if listening, and then vanished. Just dissolved into the air. When I finally managed to move, I turned on every light in the house and swore that if it happened again, I wouldn't spend another night there. But at dawn, I found marks on the floor again. Wet footprints, leading from the door to the stairs. I sat on the couch, hands trembling. Had someone broken in? But the door was locked. Every window was sealed. And the most terrifying part? There was no sign of forced entry. Nothing. It was as if the footprints had simply appeared there. That's how, 2 hours later, I met Margaret. She was around 60, with white hair tied in a low bun and sharp, calm eyes. She owned a small antique shop near Market Street, and Rachel swore she was a medium, someone who occasionally helped frighten tourists. Margaret welcomed me with tea and patience. She listened to my entire story without interrupting, just nodding slowly. Her voice was calm, but heavy with seriousness. She told me that usually spirits that manifest themselves like this have a purpose. They're not just wandering. They want something. She stood up, went to a shelf, and picked up a small metal bell. You need to listen to what she has to say. From what you've described, it's a woman, and she wants to be heard, but you need to be prepared for what you're going to hear. I left the shop with the bell in my bag and the feeling that my life was about to change. That night, I prepared my house just as Margaret instructed. Dim lights, candles lit, windows locked. I placed the bell on the coffee table and sat down on the floor. When the clock struck midnight, I felt the temperature drop. I took a deep breath and rang the bell. The metallic sound echoed through the house, sharp and piercing. At first, nothing happened. Then a whisper. so faint I thought it was the wind. But it grew louder, clearer, until I could make out the words. "Emily. Who are you?" My voice came out trembling. No answer. Just a sound. Footsteps upstairs. I ran to the staircase and saw something move in the hallway, a female shadow standing at my bedroom door. I climbed slowly, one step at a time, until I was facing her. It was a silhouette, no face, just a dense shadow against the faint light of the candle I held in my hand. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely there. The shadow raised her arm and pointed inside the room. Then I saw it. Something scratched into the wooden floor, as if someone had used a knife or fingernail to write. I knelt to read it. "Look under the floor." When I lifted my eyes, the shadow was gone. I spent the rest of the night trying to decide if I'd lost my mind or if I really needed to tear up my own floorboards. At sunrise, I grabbed a screwdriver and began removing one of the looser planks right in the corner of the room. The wood creaked and a cloud of dust rose. Beneath it, I found something wrapped in old fabric. Inside it was something that made my stomach drop. An old medal, a black and white photograph of a woman, probably from the 1920s, and a letter folded several times. When I opened the letter, I saw it was almost illegible, but one phrase froze my blood. "Don't leave me here." I held that black and white photo as if it were evidence from a crime scene. The woman looked to be in her 30s, maybe younger. She wore a simple dress, her hair styled in soft 1920s waves. Her face was serious, almost sad. And behind her, a blurred background that looked disturbingly like my bedroom. My heart raced. Was it a coincidence? Or had that woman lived there nearly a century before me? The letter, yellowed and stained, contained only a few readable words. The paper was brittle, almost crumbling in my hands. The phrase, "Don't leave me here," appeared again in one of the lines, like a desperate scream frozen in time. I closed the box and sat motionless for several minutes, staring into nothing. Something inside me said that if I could understand who that woman was, maybe this would all end. The next morning, I took the photo to Margaret. She put on her glasses, examined it closely, and frowned. There are stories in Charleston about a woman named Clara Whitmore. They say she disappeared in the 1920s. She was the daughter of a wealthy family, but got involved with someone her parents didn't approve of. After a scandal, she vanished without a trace. That she never left the city. Margaret closed the photo and handed it back to me. "Maybe she's in your house. Maybe she died there." A chill ran down my spine. I went home with my mind spinning. I placed the photo on the table and stared at that face for hours. As night fell, I began to feel the same heavy coldness as before. The candles flickered even without wind, and the silence grew almost unbearable. I picked up the bell, rang it once, and waited. "Clara?" I called, my voice steady. "Are you Clara Whitmore?" For a moment, nothing. Then, a whisper. "Yes." My whole body froze. "What do you want from me?" I asked. The candles went out suddenly, plunging everything into darkness. I heard slow footsteps climbing the stairs, even though I was alone. I ran toward the sound, and when I reached the bedroom, I saw the female shadow again, standing in the corner. This time, there was more detail. I could make out the outline of the dress, her pinned-up hair, and a nearly tangible sadness radiating from her. She raised her arm and pointed at the box on the floor. "The letter," I whispered. "You want me to read it all?" The air grew heavy. A silent answer. I sat on the floor and carefully tried to decipher the blurred lines. Scattered words appeared between stains. Locked. No one hears. Darkness. It was as if Clara had been imprisoned there. When I looked up, the shadow was gone. In her place, I heard only a faint sob echoing through the hallway. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, if Clara really died there, if she was forgotten, was she murdered? Was her body still somewhere in that house? I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard a whisper right in my ear. Dig. I shot up in bed. Dig. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard, but the word repeated, dragged out, insistent. Dig. I got up, grabbed a flashlight, and went to the kitchen, where the basement door was. I almost never used that space. It was damp, full of old boxes. With every step I took downward, the air grew colder. The flashlight illuminated bits of brick walls covered in mold. The silence was so thick I could hear the sound of my own heartbeat. In the darkest corner, something caught my attention. The cement floor looked cracked, as if it had been patched up. There were marks from old tools, nearly faded. I knelt and touched the ground. Cold, hard. But for a moment, I swear I felt a vibration, like something was just beneath the surface. Clara? My voice echoed through the basement. Silence answered. Then a low moan, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. That's when I realized Clara didn't just want to be heard. She wanted to be found. I stayed on my knees, the flashlight shaking in my hand. That crack in the cement looked almost intentional, as if someone had sealed something there, in a hurry, trying to hide it. The low moan continued, like a distant echo. I closed my eyes for a second and heard something again. I stood up, ran upstairs, and looked for tools. I found a hammer and a chisel, leftovers from the house's previous owner. I went back down, hands slick with sweat, and positioned the chisel in the crack. The first strike echoed like thunder through the silent house. The cement chipped away, releasing dust and fragments. I kept going, blow after blow, until a larger piece came loose. Underneath, there was dark, damp soil. A strong smell rose immediately, of mold, of things long sealed away, but also of something metallic, almost like iron. It was a smell I'd sensed before. I kept breaking through, each piece giving way until I'd opened a space big enough to reach in. The earth was cold and heavy, clinging to my fingers. I dug with my hands, covered in dirt, until I felt something solid. Wood, a piece of rotted wood buried down there. I cleared away more soil until I realized it was part of a larger box, almost a crate. I pushed hard, and it opened with a crack. Inside, something wrapped in old fabric. The cloth crumbled at my touch, and I saw bones. A human skeleton, hidden beneath the floor of my house. The shock hit so hard I fell back, slamming against the brick wall. My stomach turned, and for a few seconds I thought I'd faint. But then the silence broke. A sob, low, coming from all directions at once. I stood up slowly, my flashlight illuminating the hollow face of the skull. It felt like I was staring right at Clara, finally found, after a century of being forgotten. In that moment, a rush of wind swept through the basement, extinguishing the flashlight. I was plunged into total darkness, unable to see my own hands, but I heard it clearly. Thank you. The voice was feminine, soft, but full of pain. Clara? I asked, swallowing hard. No answer. The cold air began to fade slowly. The suffocating heaviness that had haunted me for nights seemed to lift. When I managed to turn the flashlight back on, the basement was silent again. But the bones were still there, undeniable. I ran upstairs, washed my hands, and sat on the couch, my entire body shaking. What was I supposed to do now? Call the police? How could I explain this? No one would believe I found bones by following the directions of a ghost. I grabbed my phone and called Rachel. 40 minutes later, she arrived. I took her down to the basement, showed her the hole and the remains. She covered her mouth, horrified. I stayed awake all morning, trying to decide what to do. When the sun finally rose, I called the police. They arrived a few hours later, 2 officers and an investigator. They examined the hole, took photos, and one of them muttered something about very old bones. They asked if I knew who it might be. I shook my head. I didn't mention the photo or the letter. or Clara. When they left, the silence returned. But this time, it was different. Not oppressive, just empty. For the first time in days, I slept a few hours without nightmares. But when I woke up, I realized I wasn't alone. Clara's photo, which I'd left on the table, was now on my nightstand, and written on my wall in thin scratch-like strokes were the words, "It's not over." I knew Clara wouldn't rest so easily. Finding the bones had only been the first step. In the days that followed, the house seemed to live in 2 layers of reality. During the day, everything was quiet. I could drink coffee, read, even talk to Rachel without anything happening. But when the sun went down, the signs returned. Doors creaked even when shut. The floorboards groaned as if someone were walking beside me. And always at midnight, the same soft, trembling voice whispered near my ear, "The truth." I began to research obsessively. I dug through old city records, yellowed newspapers, and the municipal library. And that's where I found what changed everything. A 1921 article with a black and white photo. Young woman mysteriously disappears in newly built home. It was Clara. The delicate smile, the deep eyes, exactly like in the photo I'd found in the basement. The article said she'd moved in with her husband, Thomas Whitfield, heir to a small local fortune. Months later, Clara vanished without a trace. Thomas claimed she'd run away, tired of small-town life. But what caught my eye was a note at the end. Neighbors reported hearing screams at night, but no investigation was ever made. My stomach churned. Clara's body hadn't ended up in the basement by accident. I went home with my mind spinning. That night, Clara's presence returned, stronger than ever. My flashlight kept flickering, and the air grew colder. A loud crash startled me. Something had fallen upstairs. I ran up and found Clara's photo on the floor, the glass shattered. Behind the photo, there was an inscription on the backing paper, written in old ink. "Don't trust him." My heart pounded. Thomas. I spent days obsessed with researching the husband. I found financial records, inheritances he'd received right after Clara's death. Faded testimonies, rumors of fights. Everything pointed to him as her killer. But there was something even darker. In another 1925 newspaper, I read that Thomas had also disappeared without a trace. The article speculated he'd fled to escape debts. As I tried to sleep that night, I heard heavy footsteps climbing the stairs. A chill ran through my body. They weren't Clara's light steps. They were firm, dragging, almost angry. The door to my room creaked open, and for an instant, I saw the shadow of a tall man standing in the doorway. The air grew unbearably dense. "You shouldn't have meddled with this." The voice was deep, rough, coming from everywhere at once. Clara hadn't been asking for justice. She'd been asking for vengeance. And somehow, Thomas was still there too. I didn't sleep that night, or the ones after. The house had become a stage for an invisible war. 2 spirits still bound by the crime that united them. Rachel kept begging me to leave, to sell the place, to start over. But something held me there, a mix of fear and fascination, as if I were part of the story now. Until the last night. Clara appeared stronger than ever. The lights went out, and when they came back, she was standing in the corner of the room, pale, wearing the same dress from the photo. Her hollow eyes stared at me with despair. The male shadow appeared behind her, gripping her by invisible shoulders. She screamed, a sound that sliced through the air like knives. And then, everything stopped. The house shook as if it were collapsing. The walls vibrated, and all the lights turned on at once. On the floor, in the center of the room, were now 2 scorched marks, like footprints in a shadow. Clara and Thomas were gone, forever. But since that night, the house has never been the same. The silence is absolute, oppressive, like it's watching me. Sometimes I see Clara's photo move on its own. Other times, I smell that metallic scent again. And that's how Emily's account ends. The woman who discovered not just a skeleton beneath her home, but the weight of a love story turned into a curse. The old houses of America keep secrets that never make it to the papers but live on in the whispers of the night. Would you have the courage to spend a night in her place? Until then, remember, the walls have ears, and sometimes they have bones too. See you in the next story.